Emma,
Yes, Mel.
what do you call temperatures of the low 50s and the mid to upper 70s?
I don't know. What do you call it?
The Outer Wilds. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
That one got a full-on eye roll.
I think I just, curled up a little bit. Just my entire body, cringed just slightly.
It's because, normally you would think of mild as somewhere in the 60s, but, the very low 50s and the upper 70s, still comfortable.
Not the upper 70s.
Mid to upper 70s, depending on the humidity level.
Okay. Sure.
This has been the Weather Report. Remember that whole episode where we talked about weather?
Yeah, we did a whole episode that was only the weather. You can find it. It's called And Now the Weather.
The weather.
So if you find that on our website, you can listen to us talk about the weather.
6 months ago.
Still relevant to this
Anyway, my name is Madelyn, your resident meteorologist.
And I'm Emma, the one with the lower heat tolerance.
And thanks for tuning in. This week we will not be talking about the weather that much more, probably. I mean, you never really know at Talk This what could be relevant. But we will be talking about the games Disgaea and the Outer Wilds. Now that I've used it as a joke in the intro, I am hoping that I won't make the mistake of calling it by the name of another game with a very similar title as many times as I predicted last week.
Just watch when we go to pick the next games. I'm definitely going to pick Outer Worlds out of the hat. I don't even know if it's in there, but it'll somehow spawn into there just to make this as confusing as possible.
And to make matters even better, we just won't even record a segment on that. We'll just copy-paste in this week's discussion.
See if anybody of you notices.
Yeah. Do any of you even know that the Outer Wilds and Outer Worlds are different games? I didn't.
Madelyn's here to be the relatable one.
Yes, very relatable. Pretend gamer.
But first, we're talking about Disgaea, which I did look up how to pronounce.
You did that thing again where you sent them to me in the backwards order. Unfortunately, I knew this time that Outer Wilds was the new game, but...
Yeah, well, even the newest Disgaea, I think, came out in, 2017, so that'd be outside of our range, theoretically.
It's true, although just mere days ago, a new remaster was released.
Oh, really?
Disgaea 4 Complete came out on the 29th.
On the
Switch, I think. Surprise, surprise. Other systems too, I believe, but definitely for Switch.
Uh-huh. Wow, we're real topical then.
Right? Very topical for this sort of niche Japanese RPG.
Good on us. We definitely do these things on purpose and not lucky happenstance.
We know our market.
But anyway, Disgaea is a series of tactical RPGs. The first one, which is originally called Hour of Darkness, and as I was reading about it, it has 12 other names also.
I don't love the title Afternoon of Darkness.
Yeah.
I wonder who made that call. That's interesting.
I mean, technically it's the same sort of thing, right? It's just more specifying when the hour is happening. And also it's unnatural, right? Because the afternoon's not supposed to be of darkness.
True. I would say it is both more and less specific. The Hour of Darkness does specify a duration, whereas Afternoon of Darkness, well, you're right, specifying a specific time. How many different forms of the word specify can I include in one sentence, listeners? You'll find out soon. But does not delineate a specific... Oh my gosh, I just did it. I was trying to not. Time span. So, how long is an afternoon?
You're right. We have different definitions.
Time of year, depends on where you are. Depends on what you consider afternoon.
But anyway, I think I had that one. The DS,
really?
When they re-released it, as also it's called Disgaea DS. So I think I had it on the DS at some point. I did not play very much of it. It did not grab me. Partially, I imagine, because I sort of probably expected it to be Fire Emblem, and it's actually, as I've been told by the internet, much more complicated than Fire Emblem in terms of tactical gameplay, which is probably why I didn't like it, because I only like to be challenged to a certain extent, you know?
Only to the extent where it makes me feel like I'm good at games.
Yes. Only to the extent where I regularly feel smart. And not always stupid. Which I feel like I was feeling with Disgaea. In that I always felt stupid. That's the general impression that it brings up when I think about it.
Well, this is going to be a great next 20 minutes for you, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to love it.
So the original one, did you already say it was originally released in 2003?
I might have. I don't know if I got around to it.
To reiterate, it was originally released in 2003. It's from Nippon Ichi Software. It's published by everybody's favorite RPG company, Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's favorite. That was a strong choice. But
well, it has a lot of publishers, I think, throughout the series. I guess the original was by Atlas, but
yeah,
it's sort of jumped around since then.
Sure. It was originally on the PS2. Then when it became Afternoon of Darkness, it came to the PSP. When it was Disgaea DS, it was on the DS, obviously. Yeah. And now there's a bunch of remastered compilations for various gameplay systems, including the home of every game, the Nintendo Switch.
Yes. There's nothing that's not on the Switch anymore. Except for Outer Wilds. But, you know, we're not there yet. I don't think it's on the Switch. Maybe it is. But yeah, so something I did not realize, I think just because, I don't know why, but I didn't realize that they're not actual, like there's Disgaea and Disgaea 2 and Disgaea 3 and Disgaea 4, but they're not actual direct sequels. They're just like...
Except for D2.
Except for D2. But generally they're just sort of like the way it's set up is similar in that there are like demons and you're some sort of demon man and you collect, you know, demons and you sort of have to do nice things even though you don't want to.
Yeah, so all of the Disgaea games take place in various netherworlds where morality is not what you expect it to be, and there are a lot of demons. I think you're a vampire in Disgaea 4. But you're some kind of demonic creature, and you partner with other demonic creatures and also sometimes angels from the like heaven world to do various demonic things. Mostly on a board of squares.
Right. As much as I think people do enjoy the stories and characters of Disgaea, a lot though, and this is something that I was like background aware of, but even like looking at it is just so foreign to me. It's just like there's so much post-game stuff in that you can level up all your characters to like 9,999, and like people do this, like they go back to the original game and have put like 300 hours over, you know, like a decade into it, which is just so strange to me.
Yeah,
because a lot it's just like you just keep making your characters better, and apparently it stays fun in that way.
It certainly appeals to a certain kind of player. You do always get to feel like you're making progress, and I suppose, having never played these games, that the tactics of it must be quite complicated.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why on earth would you want to go back and keep replaying it over and over and over and over? I did see one of the articles I read was like, yeah, I definitely have some friends who are still playing the original like 10 years later.
Yeah, for like the beginner's guide to Disgaea and Kotaku, yeah, that's what I was looking at too.
Wow,
it's like...
rude to call me out for exactly the article I was reading.
It's like the story is like 20 to 40 hours apparently, but then you can just keep grinding those characters up. And it's not just story characters. Like, you can also, like, make your own characters just for fun. Like, you can, like, design a unit to use if you feel like your characters aren't working for you.
Anyway, Disgaea is, well, Emma's right that it's also known for this incredible endless grind. That's probably an uncharitable word to use, but whatever. It's also known to be a series with quite an odd little sense of humor.
Right.
Particularly the first one gets called out a lot for being, like, very fun and funny. And not least because it features the Prinnies.
Right. Which, wait, what is a Prinnie? Wait, let me just read what a Prinnie is. They're stitched together vessels for the souls of murderers, thieves, and other unsavory criminals, condemned to an afterlife of servitude for their transgressions. When you throw them, they explode. They also say dude a lot, so there's that.
Dude, D-O-O-D.
Yes, that's very important. They're also the star of a couple of spin-off games, because of course they are. And they're also just the company mascot now, because of course they are.
I mean, come on.
I mean, when you have something that just looks like a demon penguin, like, what do you can't not use that in everything. You know, it's like the slimes from Dragon Quest. Like, they couldn't just leave that perfect, iconic character in the, like, you know, just confined to the games. There must be, like, slime everything, you know? You have to get your slime Nintendo Switch controller.
I thought of them as kind of anti-Moogles.
They kind of are, yeah. And that they have, like, the catchphrase. They're kind of cute, but a little weird looking. Moogles are, like, sort of, I guess, like, demon pigs. Sort of.
I wouldn't describe Moogles as demons.
But, like, you know, they have, like, the wings and the weird little thingamajigs, right? Supernatural pigs, like, maybe crossed with, like, a bear.
Supernatural Pigs would be an excellent band name.
Just make sure to credit me.
The Supernatural Pigs!
But yeah, that's the Prinnies. It's Prinnie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are like one of the. They're like the Moogles or the Chocobos. They're like the creature that carries across all the different installments of the game, even as characters change. Right? There's always got to be a Prinnie.
Yeah. Yeah, Disgaea is a game that it's hard for me to. Well, on one level, it's not hard for me to understand. Goodness knows I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem lately. I get the appeal of the turn-based strategy game. But, like, I'm at now, and granted, I leave the game running sometimes, so this hour count is inflated. But I'm at, like, 100 hours on Fire Emblem, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Most of which is time spent listening to my characters, like, teach each other not to be afraid of ghosts.
Yeah.
And stuff. And, again, granted, of course the Fire Emblem fights are not as strategic, necessarily, or as difficult as I imagine they are in this game. However, I can't imagine myself wanting to level these characters up for another 10 years.
I mean, I just imagine that you must, like, it must have a really good understanding of, like, how to get the player in a flow state, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Of, like, it's not mindless, but, you know, it's when you're, like, you feel comfortable in what you're doing and there's a level of thinking involved, but you just get into, like, a cycle with it where you understand what you're doing and it feels good, you know?
But it's got to be more than that. Because it's one thing to be able to get someone within a play session to that flow state, right? Mm-hmm. That's one thing. And a big important thing, of course. I'm not saying it's not, but that's one thing you can do. But it's another thing to get it so people are coming back, you know, routinely day after day, or even at least routinely week after week, or a couple times a month, or something, for a game over the course of years, where they aren't being rewarded with story progression, or, I don't know, that much with cosmetics or anything either, just purely with the gameplay. It does feel like something a bit out of a different era, right?
But at the same time, it feels very modern, right? Like, there's this big, huge push towards making, like, lifestyle games, right? Because, Not just so you can sell DLC or packs or whatever, although that's part of it, but also because if someone keeps playing your game over the course of a year, they keep talking about it for that year, which means ideally you're bringing in new players through word of mouth, right? So, there's this idea that, if you make, a lifestyle game, something that people fit into their lives, that makes a game overall more successful nowadays. And that was something that it seems like, whether on purpose or not, they were doing back in 2003, of trying to make these games that people could fit into their lives, or wanted to,
Definitely. And I definitely go through phases where that's something that I want, right? Just a game that I can sit down and I know exactly how it works and I don't have to think too hard about it. But it's hard to, I hope. It's hard to think of myself in that space, that headspace, for a decade.
I mean, it might be a matter of we're overinflating it a little bit, right? Even if there's a game from 2003 that people regularly go back to now, it doesn't mean that they're playing it every day or even every week. It just means that it's a game that they pick up on a relatively regular basis, right?
Even
it's
that, though.
You go back to Stardew Valley every once in a while.
I actually haven't in a while because I've sort of felt like they've made a bunch of changes and I want to try those, but also I'm afraid there would be new things.
Right.
And I'm afraid I wouldn't remember how to do things.
But, okay, maybe you don't, but people go back to Stardew Valley on a regular basis.
For sure.
It's not necessarily something that you even play every month, but it's something that they maintain in their lives.
I guess I'm just saying I don't really personally feel like I've ever had a game that is ongoing that I continue to go back to over the span of a very long time. Right? Mostly this is because I don't really play any of the games as service or massively multiplayer games. And that's probably why I'm having a harder time understanding this a little bit. Not understanding, but connecting to this a little bit. I'm thinking, it took me a year to finish Persona 5, even though that was a game that I was enjoying. And I did keep going back to it, which, a little pat on the back for me for that, I guess. But I can't think of anything that I play that regularly in that kind of way, or even semi-regularly in that kind of way. There's just so many... And I'm sure you sympathize with this. There's so many games coming out all the time. How could I go back and
Yeah. I mean, it's a little different, but I'm sure that since I got the PlayStation 3, I've made time once a year to play one of the Kingdom Hearts games or more.
That's totally different, though.
Is it?
I think.
Is it
I think so, yeah.
Why?
It's the difference between being someone who goes back and rewatches a couple seasons of The Office every year, or the difference between being someone who is very slowly working your way through all of Doctor Who or all of Naruto or something.
Which one? It says something about your metaphor that I don't know which one's which there, so...
If you go back and you rewatch, The Office is a little bit too long to be a good example. I'm trying to think of, if you go back and you rewatch Firefly every year, right? Okay. You're getting that kind of story dopamine hit. But it's not like you're playing something new or building on it regularly. You're going back, it's like comfort food. As opposed to if I'm someone who's trying to work through some old school TV show that has hundreds of episodes. It doesn't even have to be that old school, but something that has hundreds of episodes very slowly over time.
But people do that. So it makes it so it's not actually that incomprehensible, right? It's like
if somebody was trying to watch every episode of Doctor Who the way we watch Split Screen. Sometimes once a week, sometimes when they get busy, once a month.
But is that the same? Because if you're going back to the same game, you're doing things that you've probably already done, just with stronger characters. You're not, experiencing things in Disgaea for the first time.
You're right.
If anything, that feels more like the going back to watch parts of The Office every year than Kingdom Hearts does.
I just think there's something fundamentally different from going back and replaying a game. Like a game
But there's elements of replaying in playing this game over the course of a while. Like, yeah, you're not starting a new play file, but...
That's true. I guess it just feels like the motivation is different. Like, theoretically, and maybe this is wrong, like, theoretically the motivation for going back to play Disgaea over and over is you're still trying to level up your character. Right? And that's driving you. As opposed to if I go back and I replay, whatever, Kingdom Hearts or Persona or any game, I'm not doing it because I'm, like, wanting to level up my character higher. That doesn't work. I'm doing it because I enjoy the game. I don't know. I'm having a hard time defining what's different, but it feels like there's something a little bit fundamentally different there.
If anything, the more you talk about it, the more I think that the people who go back and play Disgaea over the course of many years are more understandable than someone like me who goes, or it's like, it's different because, like, there's something singular about Kingdom Hearts in the way that maybe somebody else, there'd be something singular about the Metal Gear Solid series or the Uncharted series or whatever, in that it's something that's familiar and fond to me. And it's not necessarily something that would extend to many other games. Whereas with Disgaea, it's more understandable because, like, you have goals, you still have goals in it as you go back, right? Like, there's no story progression anymore, there's no character progression, and maybe, like, you've played all the levels or something by now. But you can still be like, okay, this time I'm going to get, what's the guy's name in Disgaea? The first one?
Lahari.
Lahari. Today I'm going to get Lahari to level 8,000, you know? And so there's, like, this constant ticking sense of, like, accomplishment, even when, like, you're getting to insane numbers like that.
I just wonder how they keep the game challenging. Things have to change, right? When you're level 8,000, surely you are fighting something else.
I mean, is it randomly generated? I mean, things must scale with you, obviously. Yeah. I don't think it was randomly generated. Is it?
I don't think so either. That doesn't feel like this kind of game could be that.
Right. But yeah, I imagine the enemies must scale with you, otherwise it would just be tedious, right? Like, yeah. You wouldn't be getting very much experience from
yeah,
level 1 enemies or whatever.
It's just interesting, you know, this game from the The Last of Us days when games didn't have stories.
Not a single game had a story before The Last of Us came out. I'm not sure if you
cared about listeners stories.
I'm not sure if you listeners knew that. But
we talk about it every once in a while on the show. But it's also interesting because it kind of calls to mind more eventually. I mean, once you get through those 20 to 40 hours of story, it more calls to mind, you know, like the purpose you would have in playing an arcade game.
Right.
Right? You just want to keep playing it over and over and try to get a higher score.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's so interesting because games that people come back to over and over these days, it's not really like that, right? You come back to Fortnite because there's some new event. You come back to insert Blizzard game title that I'm not going to talk about here, like, over and over because they have some kind of new thing for you, right?
Guess so.
Even games that are kind of story-based, more story, you know, they'll add new story elements, right? The DLC expands the story. They're constantly adding something new to get you coming back. And so it's interesting to think about this game that's like, well, it's just out of the box. Like, it is what it is. And people still come back and keep playing it.
Some of the later titles do have DLC.
Fair, but still different in scale, right?
I don't know.
If I'm comparing this as a game that people sort of return to and play regularly, right? The parallels in 2019 games, I feel like, are these, like, big online Battle Royale or, like, World of Warcraft or any of these kinds of things. Obviously not at all the same type of game, so maybe appealing to a different type of person. But with those, it feels like they're constantly rolling out new things to kind of keep the person engaged. And, you know, killing their teams in the process. So it's interesting to think about a game that somehow found a way to get people coming back without having to be constantly feeding them new content.
Sure, yeah.
And the trick is printies.
You heard it here first.
Come on, tell me you wouldn't play a printy Fortnite event.
I mean, I probably would. Do I want to play the printy side-scrollers? Maybe a little. You know? I'll never tell.
It's like, would you get a printy skin, or would all of the weapons be just printy bombs that you throw around?
Printy for Smash Bros.
Yeah.
It's printy skin. Sans can get it, so why not printy?
Why indeed? Why indeed? Dude. I do just want to call out that D2, the subtitle for that one, the direct sequel to the first one, is called A Brighter Darkness.
Yeah, that's funny. Just sort of a dimness, you know?
Yeah. Just like, you kind of have to squint a little. Should you turn on the lamp? It's not quite dark enough to turn on the lamp.
It's probably bad for your eyes, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, shall we swap games now that the afternoon of darkness turns to night?
Yes, let us talk about Outer Wilds.
That's funny that the game we were talking about was really called, like, Hour of Darkness, and now we're gonna go talk about Outer Wilds.
Yeah,
okay.
They have the same noise in the words.
I meant that it's about... Outer Wilds should really be called 22 Minutes to Save the World. To the tune of the Madonna song.
Uh-huh.
You're uh-hing me.
I want to point out that the Wikipedia page even has, like, a not to be confused with the Outer Worlds right at the top.
That's literally my first note after the publisher note. I have 2019, Mobius Digital, published by Annapurna. Next line. Even Wikipedia has a note, not to be confused with Outer Worlds.
Just everybody has not enough brain power anymore.
Maybe when my brain is level 9,999, I'll be able to do it.
Yes. Well, so Outer Wilds originally came out on the Xbox back in May, and Windows, actually, which is Microsoft, and then was just released for the PlayStation 4 about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow, my research wasn't so good this week then, huh? I didn't realize that.
Topical.
Yeah, we're very on top of it this time, huh?
Yeah. No, I didn't put it in the hat, or at least I don't think I did, but I didn't put it in the hat until I knew that I would be able to play it. Right, mostly because I had heard such glowing things about it when it came out. It was like the only game in this entire generation when I was like, man, God, it's only on Xbox. Darn it.
You couldn't force your tablet computer to run it?
I wasn't gonna try.
Make it sweat a little bit?
It would have, I don't know if it would have added or subtracted to the experience. But it would have done something to the experience.
Yes.
But I played about 45 minutes of it before this episode.
So two rotations?
Oh, no. Because my first time,
oh, no.
You're in the middle of a town, right? Like, you're launching from your home village. And in the town area, there's a geyser. And I thought, what would happen if I jumped into the geyser? And you know what happens? You drown. That's what happens.
A clue, probably.
You can talk to all the villagers and they teach you how to use all your stuff. And so there's these kids that were trying to teach me how to use... I can't remember what it's called, but it, picks up, music, basically. And I thought that I could go above them and sort of, jump down on top of them because I was having a lot of trouble jumping across to them. And I jumped too far, and I jumped into the waterfall, and it crushed me to death. So I died twice before even getting in my rocket.
Yikes.
It does, what I imagine is, a developer's version of a slow clap, in that it says... You are dead, and then it starts rolling the credits if you die in the town before starting off on your mission.
Nice.
It's good job is the feeling I got from it.
You did great.
Nice effort, kiddo. But no, I died 4 times and then stopped, including those 2 deaths in the town.
So for folks that aren't familiar with the Outer Wilds, let me give a
just
brief...
Outer Wilds, by the way. There's no the.
There's no the?
There's no the.
I thought it was the Outer Wilds and then Outer
the
Worlds.
Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds.
Does that count as a messed up thing?
Yes.
Shoot! I did it in the joke too! Oh, how humiliating.
Yes, but give us the introduction to the game, and then I can regale you with more of my spacefaring adventures.
We do play video games.
We do.
And we know how to play them.
Yes.
We are not bad at them.
No.
Anyway, Outer Wilds, not to be confused with either The Outer Worlds or The Outer Wilds. As Emma said, released this year. And in this game, you play as this, like, alien spacefarer who is going off to explore the galaxy. And you discover, like, right away, this alien race called the Nomai, right?
Well, you already know about them.
Okay, fine. You already know about the Nomai. And they wanted to find the center of the universe, which you sort of discover over the course... maybe you discover over the course of the game? I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, they've built statues that can send information 22 minutes backward in time. Why 22 minutes? I don't know. But that's what they did. However, they couldn't activate any of those because it required the power of a supernova. And so now, the reason that you, this alien, you're stuck in this 22-minute time loop. Because at the end of those 22 minutes, the star goes nova and everything is destroyed. But it activates the statues, which sends all of the information back in time to your past self. So each time you play, sort of the idea is you're learning more and more about the world in those 22 minutes. You're searching around looking for clues, and eventually, I think, trying to find a way to like stop the supernova.
I haven't gotten there yet. I've not made it to 22 minutes before dying, I'm pretty sure, so.
Neat. Good. So the other cool thing about it is that the world just kind of keeps on spinning. I mean, it's the same 22 minutes over and over again. Not an original joke, but it's like space Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm.
Everything runs the same. I mean, except for you do different things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these kind of other planets around nearby, and certain things happen to them depending on where they are in their rotation, and things are different. But it's the same every time. So you're not, one of the reviews was like, you're never going to have to do like a really long, elaborate, crazy quest because everything happens in 22 minutes the same way over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a repeating mystery kind of idea.
Yeah. So I was going to play more of it, but as I was playing it, I was like, this is probably best played in like short bursts frequently. In terms of like doing a couple of deaths every time and then putting it down. But anyway, so basically you walk around the town, you learn how to do things, you get your launch codes, and then you are sent off to explore the Outer Worlds. Isn't
No!
that funny? I mean, that's what you're sent to do, though, basically. And you have all these tools, like I said, you have, so there's other space travelers out there, and you can sort of find them by their instruments, which is what this sort of sound locator does.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you point it out towards somewhere and be like, oh, some guy playing the Vuvuzela. Yeah. I don't think anybody's playing that, but somebody's playing some sort of like weird flute tube thing. Is on that planet. Maybe I should head over there or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have again, I can't remember any of the terms for these despite playing it. A scout. You have like a scout thing that you can send out, and then you can take photos with it to sort of see what's in front of you. And you can also sense like there's like ghost dust that will explode you if you walk into it. So if you like shoot the scout ahead of you, it'll tell you if it runs into a hazard so that you don't explode. I did not explode during my my time. just other ways. But the main portion of it is like you're flying around in your spaceship, you land on another planet, you try to find what you can on that planet, either by talking to your fellow space travelers or following other rumors that you might have on that planet. So one complaint I will have is like the transition from big space to on a planet is way like incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Like, you're just very suddenly in big space heading towards the planet, and then you're on the ground. Which makes landing a little difficult, which explains my first death, in which I crash landed my ship and did not take the flashing alarm seriously enough and sort of like ambled my way out of my ship, and then it exploded as I was looking at it, and I died. So that was my first death in space, not counting the ones where I died beforehand.
Not counting the geyser mishap.
Yes. And then the other time, I made it back. I managed to land my ship, still with minimal damage, but not as bad. It was just like the headlights, so it wasn't going to explode. And I fixed it. I talked to the space traveler that was there. He told me that he was also experiencing sort of a loop in the same way I was. And then told me about the Statue Island on the planet. So I went over there, I learned some stuff, and then I was struck by lightning, and I died. And then I stopped.
No, there's lightning there.
Well, it was storming. There was a time at this same run, or it might have been the first one. No, it was the last one. They're like these big cyclones on this planet because most of it's water, and I just like wasn't paying attention, and one crept up behind me and flung me back into space. But it's okay, I just jetpacked back down onto the planet. Somehow still near enough to my ship.
That's a pretty good metaphor. Sometimes I too feel like I have been cycloned out into space and I just have to jetpack back down.
It was just like, that's like part of that part I kind of appreciate how quickly it goes from way outer space to on the planet, because it was just like, snap, I was in space. It was like 5 seconds of like total confusion of like, what happened? Am I gonna die out here? But then it was all okay. I mean, it wasn't. I got struck by lightning pretty soon after that.
It's
But
okay
it was all
for
okay.
another few minutes.
But it felt like that was enough for sort of one play session. So it feels like I'm going to be playing this sort of in 45-minute bursts, I would think.
Do you feel like the flying controls are clunky? I feel like I saw that semi-frequently in my research.
I mean, a little. Just in terms of landing, I think.
Do you feel like it's part of the point that they are clunky?
I mean, I'm sure it's not easy to fly a spaceship, especially if you're the only one. And they're pretty clunky looking, the spaceships, to be fair.
It was just an interesting discourse to come across for a game that got very, very glowing reviews and some, like, game of the generation comments. Right. Especially during a week where I've seen similar commentary about another game. That's all.
I mean, it's definitely different than I expected, the whole game.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I was expecting. I didn't expect there to be so much talking to people, I guess. I guess I was sort of picturing like a No Man's Sky type situation.
Right.
But it's definitely more sort of narrative focused than that in a strange way.
I mean, sort of. I mean, when I was reading about it, I was like, this is really it's a Nancy Drew game.
It's not quite a Nancy Drew game.
You're right. I'm sure it's not as violent as the Scarlet Hand.
You're right. You don't have to shoot a shark or whatever you did. So far, nobody has pushed me down the stairs of an Aztec pyramid.
Thank God. Maybe
it seems plausible, though. It seems like something that could happen in this game.
I can't decide whether I would really enjoy this game or if it really isn't a game that I would enjoy.
I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. I've only played this small amount of it.
In some ways, it's an open world, right? So,
but it's pretty finite for an open world.
Well, it kind of has to be because you can only spend 20 minutes going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I always feel like slightly lost, but like as I talked to the traveler, who's pretty easy to find with my special sound locating thing. And then I was like, he told me about this island, and like you can't like put a waypoint down or anything. So I was like, how am I gonna find it? But I got back in my ship and found it in about a minute. So like, it's pretty easy to follow, I guess.
Okay, that's selling me on it a little.
I got a little lost in the area I found on the statue island, statue beach, whatever he called it. But I mean, it's okay. I was only there for about 5 minutes and then I got struck by lightning, so does that really matter?
And are you finding that the time limit sort of frees you a little bit?
Well, I haven't even reached the time limit yet.
I know.
So, sure.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, I feel like it certainly forces you to take a breather from puzzles in a way that is hopefully frustration abating. Although I was seeing some other things that were like, sometimes you just like waste a run and it sucks. Like you miss a jump and you're gonna have to wait another 5 minutes for the jump to be lined up right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see how, with things that require any kind of like specific platforming or really split-second timing, how that would be really frustrating.
I haven't found anything like that yet. I did struggle to make a jump a few times, because if anything, the jetpack controls suck. Is what I'll say. More than the ship, because it doesn't seem like it does anything really. But I think that the ticket is you just have to jump and then jetpack, and not like jetpack from the ground. But it's like, the thing is, because you have like these short bursts of time to do things, like if you don't want to go back and try something again, like you can just go to a different planet. Mm-hmm. And this might get, less true as you do more things, but at least at the beginning, like, I'm probably not going to go back to Water Planet next time I play it. I'll save that for another time, but I'll try one of my other rumors on one of the other planets and see what happens. So you can sort of like, and because it's like you don't like lose progress in a run, right? Like you don't have to do everything in 22 minutes perfectly. Like you just sort of stack the experiences on top of each other. So you can always try something different if you don't feel like going back and doing something again.
Well, I think eventually you do sort of have to do, because, for example, and what is going to make this, I mean, among many things, but one of the things that is going to make this a difficult mashup is that Outer Wilds, except in the way of it's a pretty world and it's fun to walk around, has essentially zero replay value.
Right.
Like one guy in the comments was like, yeah, I spent a lot of time on it, and then I tried to replay it again, and I beat it in less than 22 minutes, wink wink. So, it's like, yeah. It's interesting to have it paired with this game that is like begging you to replay it 20,000 times. This game that pretty much literally cannot be replayed.
Well, we make you No Man's Sky. Okay, all done. And next week, it's Mal's choice to pick a side quest.
Anyway, coming back to that in a minute, I did want to talk about the development of the game a bit, and some of the delightful controversy that I will never understand around some release choices. So Outer Wilds started off as like a master's thesis or something like that at USC as a student project, and it eventually evolved, obviously, into this game that is out now. They didn't use Kickstarter. They used Fig, which is essentially like Kickstarter Plus for video games. So it not only allows you to do the Kickstarter model of you donate or you become a backer of the game, but you're like a fake backer, right? You've given your money in exchange for your novelty t-shirt or your name in the credits or something like that. But Fig also gives the option for people to invest for real, which is where I think some of this stuff got a little bit sticky. So when they were crowdfunding this originally in 2015, it was just an independent studio project. However, they eventually got picked up by Annapurna, right? And that led to the game, which one of the backer promises was Steam keys. However, when it was actually going to turn out to be released, they announced that it was going to be a timed exclusive on that worst of video game things. Not Kotaku. The Epic Games Store. Almost as bad.
Oh man, the two worst enemies of all gamers.
What if Epic buys Kotaku?
Oh no! A true force of evil!
Unites! Stay off Twitter, folks.
I mean, I can see why people would be a little bit miffed about that. Like, that's one thing.
I get it, and some of it was, I mean, I don't know. How many people run Linux? I don't know. I guess a lot, but it doesn't feel like it could be that many. That Epic isn't really Linux compatible. Doesn't have a Linux compatible front end. So if I was one of those people, yeah, I would be pissed. But it really seems like a thing that was more about people having this kind of irrational hatred for this storefront for some reason that I still don't really fully understand and don't want to, than actual principled reasons. I just don't get it. It's all a capitalist machine.
I did find some backer thank yous in the museum.
Oh, that I was very confused for a moment. The in-game museum.
Yeah.
I was like, what museum were you at that they had?
The in-game
Boston's
museum.
weird.
Well, where they taught you about different space environments and stuff.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, originally the time loop was 18 minutes.
Why did they extend it? Just
They needed more time for stuff, I guess. But imagine having to make that development decision, like, partway through. Like, it's like, sorry, guys, gotta extend it all.
I mean, would that really matter?
It just feels like in a world where everything is kind of happening on a constant loop. It's one thing, I guess, if you're just adding 4 minutes at the end. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it was, or if it was, actually, we have to extend a minute here, and a minute there, and a minute there, and a minute at the end.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of decision kind of feels like they were trying to do something and it just wouldn't fit in 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Like they had something they wanted to do. But I can see the complications that would come from that.
Also, apparently some of the narrative came from them playing like a tabletop RPG brainstorm, like basically.
That's funny.
And unsurprisingly, playtesting is super important for this game, right? Because there's not really, not to say there's not a story, right? But there's no linear path. You can do anything in any order, and nothing is really being spoon-fed to you.
Right.
You just have to find the clues. So apparently they had to simplify a lot of things because people weren't getting it.
Right.
Which doesn't surprise me, but also, what a tricky thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it paid off because all the reviews are like, it's so cool how they put so much trust in the player, yada yada. It's like Majora's Mask, which, as we all know, is one of the greatest games of all time.
No, I don't want to run into the freaky moon. There's not a freaky moon in this, is there? I don't want to turn a corner and suddenly be confronted with the Majora's Mask moon.
No, that's Luigi's Mansion, Emma. Wrong game.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky is not anything like Disgaea.
But it's got the replay value.
That's it.
No Man's Sky, but you're in hell.
This is one of the trickier mashups in recent memory, I think.
Dante's Inferno. No Man's Sky.
Dante is from Devil May Cry, Emma.
Whose Inferno am I thinking of?
No, it is
Okay.
Dante's Inferno. I was just making a joke.
I was feeling very stupid there for a second.
But no, it's very hard because the gameplay styles are totally different. The replay value is totally different. Yeah, I mean, just like pretty much everything about the actual mechanics is different. So I think you're right that we have to go at it from a. But also, like, Outer Wilds doesn't really have a story, except that everything's gonna blow up and it's in space. Whereas Disgaea has some story, but it's mostly about, like, making some jokes and then grinding forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tricky one here. It's a head scratcher. Might need to go back 22 minutes a couple times to refine this.
You've got 22 minutes to get out of the underworld.
You know what? That's not bad, though. Actually, that is kind of the one thing that unites them, right? Is the sort of going back and going back and going back. Okay. Oh, but I don't know. I think the game that I'm creating in my head now is just like an endless grind. Slash, do you remember that other turn-based squares game that we did a little while ago?
What?
Do you remember? There's another game. I can't remember anything about it because my brain is melting, just melting in my life. But there's another game where it's like you're playing as like a Starfleet, and it's squares. It's like a 9x9 square or a 3x3 square.
Into the Breach.
Yes. I feel like that's the mashup.
Really? I mean, I guess so. Yeah.
Square based. You're in a ship. Each time you come back, you get stronger.
I mean, all I was really suggesting was just take Outer Wilds and set it in the underworld.
I mean, that's fine too. I was just saying.
There's a lot of games where you're trying to get out of hell out right now, but in this case, you've got the time loop going on. But that's still just Hades, so never mind.
Including Luigi's Mansion 3, am I right?
That's true. Gotta get Luigi out of hell, where he's been eternally damned.
He is dead. Oh dang, that's a headcanon. 3 takes place in hell.
All of them do. This is just his constantly repeating purgatory.
Yikes.
Of his own making. Because he keeps
you're
accepting mysterious invitations.
Okay, you're a Prinny. Because the Prinnies, what they're doing, right, is they're slowly working off their debt so they can become, like, clear again, right? Mm-hmm. Not to mix in another sci-fi idea there. So you play as a Prinny, and you have to do this 22... But this is, like, literally this is Groundhog Day. In those 22 minutes, you have to become a better person. It's like The Good Place, or actually Groundhog Day, but with a Prinny that is
The Good Place, the
better.
Video game.
Honestly, that's kind of what Outer Wilds is, right? Like, it's like Michael trying over and over again in the beginning of Season 2, just rebooting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we can do the Get Out of Hell in 22 minutes. I think that's, and to be honest, that doesn't feel as, I don't want to say that doesn't feel as fun, because there are a lot of fun-seeming games about that, but it doesn't feel like it has the same feeling to it. That one feels like replaying an arcade game.
Well, you know, you go into all the different aspects, like, different kinds of hell. Like, oh, this time I'm going to go over to Tartarus. Or this time I'm going to go over to, whatever it is, we're going to go over to, Valhalla. That's what it's called.
I guess as long as it's, like, gathering things, solving puzzles, as opposed to, I have to get through these 6 rooms.
Yeah.
Then that
No,
works.
if it was just get out of the 6 rooms, and that's literally Hades. It's It's like After Party, except with you have a ship. It's too many games out right now that are about getting out of hell, but that's fine. Okay. That just means that the market wants it.
What the market needs is a way to climb out of the depths.
You see, it's metaphorical because the world is so sucky right now, and everybody's like, please give me a game where I rise above the suckiness, you know?
Yeah.
Deep.
I have a better idea. The Outer Wilds, 5 minutes of darkness. Same game, but just takes place over the course of 5 minutes for a shortened attention span.
Just a very mini little universe.
For mobile.
Cha-ching, baby.
And the Switch.
Okay, well, we have to wrap up, but we didn't really make a mashup.
Yes, we did. It's called Onto the Breach.
Okay.
Wait, no. Okay, give me like 2 more minutes.
We just
I can do
made
this.
like 4 existing games again.
It's like, it's Outer Wilds, but maybe it should take place in someplace, it's space hell.
Space hell.
Or you think it's hell, but you discover it's actually just way in outer space.
But isn't hell of our own making.
Whoa. Yes, it's actually just no exit. And you can go see the play.
Is that your hell, seeing no exit over and over again?
I enjoyed the one production of No Exit that I've seen.
Okay.
It's fine.
Just checking.
Yeah, this is real hard. I liked my Prinny redeeming itself game.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, it's just after a party with the penguin, but we can't help it's already out now.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it. We already have our pitch, right?
It's like it's in squares somehow. Oh man, I'm just like saying words. This is so hard.
There's squares in the penguin, and you've got to be a better person. That's our pitch. What does that mean?
The way the penguin becomes a better person is you talk to people, but when you talk to people, it's actually a mini game where you play a short tactical thing to try to make them your friend or make them feel better or like improve their lives, thus improving your own life.
Okay.
It's like the Good Place, the RPG.
We can build off that, I guess.
Look, the Outer Wilds took 7 years to develop, so we've got time.
Yeah, we're just building that in, right? This is our prototyping phase. So you've got to give us like another 3 years, and then we'll have something for you.
Yeah.
Here. And that's part of the mashup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Important element.
Exactly. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in for another sterling episode of Talk This.
It's probably our worst mashup section in a while.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been on a roll lately, and
again, it's just like this one kept creating games that already exist because these games don't really mash up. They're too different.
Yeah.
All of these games we created do kind of have replay value, though. We should probably make a game that, like, it blows up when you're done. Like a supernova. Like
it actually blows up the game?
Yeah, like once you finish it, it deletes itself.
Okay.
So you can't replay it. Even
another
if you want to.
certain game.
Is there a game that deletes itself?
Maybe.
Yikes. Okay, good. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hey, if you like the show, you should check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read more about us and the show, see the games that are in the hat that Emma's about to pull from, and read our blog, where you can check out long-running series, Clickbait Boyfriend, and Split Screen. Clickbait Boyfriend's back from the dead. Where's Split Screen?
Don't say it like that. He's still alive. He's always been alive.
I meant the series, not the human.
I know.
Anyway, you can check that out. Yeah, in honor of Halloween, we've resurrected that series. Despite the fact that I could not get him to dress as Dark Mickey Mouse for Halloween. Alas.
So
you can check those out and other blogs. Emma's got some Fire Emblem ones that she'll put up there one day.
One day.
Various other things. You should also follow us on social media. We're at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast, and on YouTube as Talk This Sisters. So follow us, subscribe, click whatever button allows you to see those posts, and tell us what you think about the show and the memes that we post. I'm going to have some good tag yourselves coming real soon, so it's a good week to follow our social media, just trust me. Let's see. What else? Oh, most important, last but not least, if you like the show, never miss an episode by subscribing. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Overcast, Pandora Podcasts on computer and app, all of that good stuff. So definitely make sure you get that subscribe button clicked so you get every show. Next week, it's a side quest where we'll be talking about a topic of my choosing. Maybe I'll post about it on the social when I decide what it is, because I haven't gotten a chance to think about it just yet. Maybe we'll talk about games journalism.
Just tell me when you know.
I need my Twitter to calm down so I can have like a topic to pick that isn't just like stick to sports. But now, finally, Emma, do you want to pick some games for our episode in 2 weeks?
You bet. So for our old game, we'll be talking about Halo.
Nice.
Yep. I don't think we've done any of like we haven't done a Call of Duty episode yet either, so.
Wow, is Call of Duty in the hat?
I don't know. Halo is. Maybe
yeah,
Call of Duty will replace it.
Yeah.
And our new game is Astral Chain.
Nice. Excellent.
Gives me an excuse to go back to it in addition to the 5 other games I'm playing right now.
Astral Halo. Halo Chain.
Halo Chain. Master Chain. The Astral Chief.
Nice. Mashup's already done, so you can just tune in and forget about that part next week.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, you're right. Before I say anything else that's wrong, Emma, do you want to sign us off this time?
You do it.
Okay. I hope you have a week that you would be happy to repeat over and over and over and over